all things New Orleans Saints.
This is Who Dat Discussion.
Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? Who dat? Say they gon' be them same.
Powered by Overtime Media.
What is up, Who Dat Nation? Welcome into our first Free Agent Frenzy episode of the Who Dat Discussion. As always, I'm your host, Andrew Galata. You could follow me on Twitter at Andrew Galata. Then also, you could follow the podcast on Twitter at the Who Dat Dis. Also, subscribe to our YouTube page at the Who Dat Discussion as well. And this is really the start of free agency. Today was the final day teams can put the franchise tag on certain players. And the Saints came out of nowhere to tag Marcus Williams. And I think we just may jump right into it because that's just how important this news is. Because like earlier in the day, it seemed like the Saints weren't going to make any franchise tag moves. It seems like they were going to try to make moves to get under the cap, but nothing to do with like franchise tagging, just because it seemed like it was going to be a big cap hit and the team wouldn't, put that on themselves because they're trying to get under. But hey, they did, and they franchise tagged Marcus Williams, the safety, and I'm happy about this, that the Saints keep Marcus Williams. Really happy about it, because I really felt like the Saints needed to keep Marcus Williams and really just keep this entire secondary together. We had a whole episode on it, just how I really wanted to keep this secondary together. I thought that they were the best secondary of the Sean Payton era, and they deserve to stay together for another year, especially with the secondary when continuity is really important. Bring a group that played really, really well in 2020. You bring it back, the same group in 2021, and you could definitely hope for another year of success. And I really think that's going to be the case with this secondary. And to me, Marcus Williams, he's definitely a key cog in that. I think really, you look at maybe Lattimore, but then really everyone. That whole secondary. Everyone brings their own different skill sets, which is why I love it so much. So that is obviously really important. But you look at what Williams does for you, and he's your ranging free safety that has really good ball skills, knows the coverages, all that stuff, knows the communication stuff. So he's really the type of player that is really growing into his own as well. He's just a really, really good player. And to me, I really thought, I said it in the tweet, I really thought he turned the corner last year, and now he's going to really grow to be one of those top free safeties in the league every single season. And that's why I really wanted the Saints to keep him, because I really believe that he was growing into just a really polished player. And you even saw the tackling get a lot better in 2020. It was really great. You saw really after the Minnesota Miracle took a dip, and it got better and better and better. And this season, it really was very, very solid, especially after the first few games. I know he didn't start the season off well, but then you saw him really get into his own, and he played amazing. That game against the Chiefs, against Patrick Mahomes, he had an awesome game. He picked off Brady a few times in the season, and look, with Brady coming back, obviously, for this season, Saints are going to need players like that, so that's obviously really big. You look at what he was able to do in these 4 years with the Saints, and, no Pro Bowls or anything, but he's kind of the unsung hero of the back end, because really, you shouldn't be talking about a free safety a lot unless he's getting interceptions or he's, missing coverages and big plays are happening. So, to me, I really thought he had a solid season. He had 59 tackles, which is solid, 7 pass defenses, which is solid. He was able to get 3 interceptions, which was nice to see, and 13 interceptions overall over the 4 years. That's a solid interception count for your safety. So that was really good, that free-ranging safety. His PFF grades are just off the charts, really good. when you're looking at it, his grades, his lowest grade was in 2018, I believe, when he was 71.1. That's still pretty solid, but you look at, there are a few 88s in there, 88 pluses. This year was 78.6, which had a lot to do with that, tough start that he had. But you saw him later in that season, late this season, really played extremely well. And he grew into the player that a lot of Saints fans were like, oh, we shouldn't keep him, to we need to keep him. That's really what he did at those last 10 games of the season. Really that Chicago game and on. You look since then, that whole secondary was just lights out since then, and to me it played really well, and they played really good in the playoffs too, which is why I really want to bring the group back. It wasn't like they were just playing bad teams. They played a lot of good quarterbacks, and they were shut down. A lot of people were bringing up with the Seahawks how their defense miraculously got better in the second half. It's because they played a lot of bad quarterbacks. That wasn't the case with the Saints. They played a lot of solid QBs, and you're looking from Patrick Mahomes to Tom Brady. They played Kirk Cousins late in the season. They played Matt Ryan twice. You're just looking through. They definitely played some solid QBs, and they played well. And they play in a division with a lot of good QBs. So, again, I feel like getting that secondary is just so important. And the Saints tag Marcus Williams for now. If I had to put my money on it, I think he gets extended before the season, but the Saints knew how important Marcus Williams was, so they wanted to solidify him as a Saint, and then the pressure to extend him like very soon, and you have to battle with other teams. You don't have that. Now, you'll be the only one trying to negotiate with him, and, he deserves to get a nice payday, and I think he will, just because usually when the Saints tag guys, they usually get paid, and they usually get their extension, and I really think Marcus Williams is going to get that, and he's going to get, like, the market value. It's not like the Saints are doing this to, like, gyp him. I really don't think that's the case. I really think they're coming in here to, they're going to give him a nice long contract, and it's just this was, ensuring that he was a Saint, and they wouldn't have to battle with other teams, and now they get to tag him, and now they'll get time to kind of work out a long-term deal, and I wouldn't be surprised if it's before the league year. I mean, I really wouldn't be too surprised. They have about a week to do that before the new league year just to lower his cap hit, because it's like the cap hit right now with the franchise tag would be $10.5 million, or around $10.5 million, which is high. I mean, especially with the situation the Saints are in right now, it's definitely high. So I bet the Saints will try to get the extension done really in the next week, and if they can't, maybe it will then go a little longer. But I feel like the Saints will definitely try to get it done now so they can lower the cap hit, so they have more money to spend in free agency. But this was, to me, a really good move. You solidify, to me, your best free agent. And, maybe your most important between him and Jameis Winston. Those are probably most important. And the Saints get this one done early here on March 9th before free agency even starts with the franchise tag. But definitely a surprise move. Not a lot of people thought it was going to happen. I mean, you saw Diana Rossini, the ESPN reporter, she said earlier today that it wasn't expected that the Saints would franchise tag anybody. Obviously, they're still trying to get under the cap and stuff like that, but no franchise tag. And then you saw later in the day, the surprise came out that the Saints did tag Marcus Williams. So, again, that is definitely very interesting that they did that. Who knows? Like, maybe they just had a 180. Like, maybe they thought they had a deal in place with him, and then it was like, no. So who knows what the situation was there. But, again, I do think it's definitely very interesting when looking at Williams and how the Saints were able to retain him. That's huge. That is just so huge that the Saints really, to me, retain their best free agent. So, again, that to me is really big. Probably the free agent that's going to cost the most when looking at AAV. Maybe it would be Jameis Winston, but between him and Winston, those are your top two, so you're able to retain him as well. So, to me, that is really interesting that the Saints did this. I'm surprised by the move. I really didn't think they'd shell out $10.5 million cap hit. That's what I'm kind of thinking, like, they won't keep that cap hit because they'll want to, try to extend him before the new league year starts. But we'll have to see on that. It will definitely be very interesting to see how that all works out. But I'm definitely surprised by this. I really thought he was going to hit the open market. But the Saints have been saying all along that, their biggest priorities were Marcus Williams and Jameis Winston. And they get probably their most important priority right out of the way early. So, again, by that, lens, it's a good move. And, when you can get a safety, this is, to me, I think he'll get paid more AAV. So when you can give someone a player of his stature, maybe for the franchise tag, just because the cap, is lower, that means the franchise tags will be lower. And I think that's kind of what happened with this. So, like, the Saints were in a position to franchise tag Williams because of the cap's going to be lower. So that means the franchise tag is lower. So that's, to me, what kind of happened there. But still, I think this opens the door for an extension and obviously opens the door for him to be back on the roster in 2021. So to me, that's really huge for the Saints. And to me, that's really big when now looking at their free agency. Check mark Marcus Williams. You got him in there, and that is definitely really huge. Before we get into, like, the salary cap and all of that stuff, we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about kind of a little of the Saints' strategy and how Marcus Williams' franchise tag affected that. But first, we are going to take a quick break. You are listening to the Who Dat Discussion podcast. Welcome back into the Who Dat Discussion, and now we're going to continue our conversation about safety Marcus Williams being franchise tagged here by the Saints. And again, I feel like, as I said before, it's a really solid move. The Saints get to keep, really, to me, their most priciest free agent. And to me, that was one of their most important free agents between him and Jameis Winston. And I do think that was a really huge move. I really feel like Williams is coming into his own as one of the top free safeties in the league. Like, I really do believe that. And I know he's had his struggles in the past, and a lot of fans have been quick to get on him. Obviously, the Minnesota Miracle 2018 kind of had a down year, and then you saw the beginning of 2020 wasn't so great, but you see the highs, and like especially at the end of this year, I really felt like he grew. I really did, and I think he's a player that definitely deserves the money, and I think he's actually going to get more AAV in a extension with the Saints, and I really do think that he's going to get extended, and I'd be beyond surprised if he played this season on a $10.5 million cap hit of the franchise tag. Like, I'd just be surprised if that happened. I really just feel like Mickey Loomis, Sean Payton, they wanted to make sure that they had their guy and that they didn't have to, battle with any other teams to get him. And then now, like over the next week, they can kind of try to bang out a long-term deal, as I really do think the Saints will like to do it before the start of the new league year. And that really does jump nicely into this salary cap situation with the Saints and kind of talking about it, as everybody besides Saints fans and Saints analysts have been like, the Saints are screwed with the cap. They're going to have to gut their whole roster. And like, that just is not the case. And it's not happening. And like, I remember, I think it was Jeremy Fowler who said like, oh, the Saints really, the priority, their priority is Marcus Williams. And everyone in the comments, just because he's a national reporter, so a lot of national football fans were in there. And they're like, there's no way the Saints can keep him. He's going to cost so much money. And here we are. The Saints kept him. And obviously that's going to make a lot of other fans unhappy, but I really feel like the Saints definitely will be able to get under the cap. And to me, they were able to open up that $15 to $20 million in cap space. And now, obviously, this kind of puts a wrench into it because that would take up $10 million of your $15 to $20 million cap space. So that's why I really feel like a long-term deal is coming where they're going to, lower his $10.5 million cap hit this year, maybe something like $5 million, like Alvin Kamara's was this season, or it's in 2021, there. But I think that's what they're going to do, so they save more money. So really, going towards 2021, you look at the cap hits, and you'll still be able to spend about $10 million in free agency here, especially cap hits wise. It doesn't mean like overall money; that just means 2021 money. So I mean, I think that's what the Saints will end up doing. But I really feel like when you look at the salary cap, and if the Saints only have around $10 million to spend, and that really shows you that they're not gutting their team. And they don't have to gut their team. Like, literally, they can bring back a very similar team to what they had last year. And obviously, the main difference would be at quarterback with Breeze and Winston, that switch. But they can do that, and they can be competitive again, very competitive, and contenders for the NFC South and all that stuff, and still be under the salary cap. They'll be cap compliant, and they'll be looking forward towards the future in 2022. If the salary cap jumps up like everyone's expecting, it seems like it won't be that big of a deal, and the Saints will be able to really kind of foster this long-term success that a lot of people have been talking about with this team. And to me, that would just show that Mickey Loomis and Sean Payton and Kai Hartley, they're the cap gods. That's all I can say. I mean, Luminomics, I would love to take a class in it. I'm in college. I would love to take a class on Luminomics because this stuff is just amazing. What he's able to do to keep this team competitive long-term is just so impressive. And I think he's going to do it, to be quite honest with you. And I think he's going to bring in pieces here for the Saints with that $10 million. And then he's going to re-sign a lot of their, like, I would say, middle guys and the role players, the Justin Hardys of the world. I mean, you can just go down the list. They'll probably let the Trey Hendricksons of the world walk. And that's just kind of the case that the Saints are in. They'll probably let Jared Cook walk. But all those players, to me, are replaceable. And I think outside of tight ends, I really do think that, they're already on the roster. I think tight end's partly there with Adam Troutman. I would like to add someone else to go with him. But that goes into my next point about the salary cap. I would like to add role players around it. And you can do that with $10 million. You could add a Trey Burton type at tight end, maybe a re-sign Josh Hill. Do both of those moves, as I said last episode. That would be great. And that's the only thing I would do with this offense here and look at the tight end group. I would try to sign 2 veteran free agents, but let's say that costs you like $5 million put together here in 2021 cap hit, and let's say you have other $5 million. You would probably want to go get a linebacker and see what the Saints can do there. If you only had $10 million, maybe you only sign one of those tight ends and try to bring like a third tight end for very cheap in the draft or something like that. So maybe you sign one for like $3 million. And so you got the Troutman, veteran tight end, and then you go get a linebacker or you go get a pass rusher. To me, I would like to get a vet pass rusher like an Alex Okafor type. There are a lot of guys out there. I mean, I saw Adrian Claiborne got cut today, so maybe a player like him. A vet pass rusher to go with Carl Granderson, to go with Marcus Davenport, to fill in with Trey Hendrickson. I do think that's really important. I mean, who knows? I mean, maybe it'll be Jadeveon Clowney or something like that, but because who knows what his market's going to be after a down year in 2020. But I mean, I do feel like the Saints will add a veteran pass rusher, and then they'll probably add a linebacker, probably a vet linebacker, but I do think that right now with the Saints, I would love to keep Quan Alexander for less money. Maybe have him, if you can negotiate a pay cut or a restructure or an extension, something like that. I would definitely love to do that with Quan. If not, I'd probably bring a veteran guy and try to draft a speed guy. And I know the Saints don't like to do that, but I mean, you just saw what the Bucs did. You see what the Saints did with Quan Alexander. You bring, you have your captain, your main middle linebacker or linebacker with Demario Davis or Levante David, and then you bring in a speed guy. You bring in Devin White. You bring in Quan Alexander, and then they're just amazing together. I think the Saints need to do that, and maybe in the draft they get a guy like Zaven Collins. A lot of people have been talking about him. Jabril Cox is another player out of LSU. Maybe you can bring those guys in out of the draft, and that's kind of how you solve this issue. But I feel like right now they'll probably try to patch it up with veterans. Maybe it's Quan Alexander. Maybe it's another guy. But that's kind of what I would like to do. Now your secondary is all set. You don't have to touch that. You restructure Janoris Jenkins, but besides that, you're good. And you're figuring between 10 to 15 million. You can fill 3 spots. And that's what I really feel like the Saints can do. You can get your Trey Burton type tight end. You can get a guy like Alex Okafor as like a veteran pass rusher. And then you can either restructure Quan Alexander or maybe go sign another linebacker, or whoever you end up getting. That's a possibility to me as well. And that's just kind of where this free agency situation is now with Marcus Williams and this salary cap situation is. I do think that they'll eventually get a long-term deal. Hopefully it comes within the next week so the Saints can work around the cap now and, maybe you can lower the cap to like $5 million this year and then obviously spread it out, backload it, do what the Saints do with their escalators and stuff like that. And then, they do that and then you have your long-term deal in place. And if you do that now, then you have more for now, $5 million more to spend. And, if you do it later, you'd have less. But again, I feel like a deal will get done where the Saints will give up less than the salary cap with Marcus Williams. But that's just what I think. I mean, I do really feel like this Saints team is going to be competitive in 2021. Really do believe that. And this move, I think, shows that they're still in the win now move. They got one of their best young players, and now they're looking to lock him up. And the Saints now checked off one of their main priorities by franchise tagging Marcus Williams, guaranteeing that he's going to be under contract for at least one more year in New Orleans, and hopefully for a really long time, because I really love the progression he made last season. But I think with all that said, it is time to wrap up this podcast. If you like what we're doing here at the Who Dat Discussion, you should definitely follow us on all of our social media platforms. That means on Twitter, you can follow us at the Who Dat Dis. On Instagram, you can follow us at Who Dat Discussion. And then on YouTube, you could also subscribe at the Who Dat Discussion. Definitely check out those videos. We've been posting the podcast now on YouTube as well with, some visual effects, get to see me on camera, all of that fun stuff. And then you could also listen to the podcast, the usual way through iTunes, Spotify, all that fun stuff. We are on there. And we're now entering free agent frenzy. Should definitely be really fun. We're going to do a podcast every day during the first week of free agency. And then our next episode is going to come out a little later this week. And we're going to preview free agency with a special guest, answer your guys' questions. It should definitely be really fun. But I think with all that said, I want to say thank you guys for listening. Turn it loose and who dat?